the door and you're not going to hire a marketing firm, let's say you're going to do it on your own, I would try to allocate between $500 to $1,000. A little less than that, it might not be as impactful. And it really depends, again, on the platform you're using and the type of lead you're trying to get. Like I was telling you guys earlier, that company I was working with, they're in a market where there are millions of dollars spent every single day in marketing. So the cost for them to get somebody to even put their name and an email into their website is so much higher because Google is trying to make sure everybody who's spending money is getting people. So you just want to make sure that you do your research and know who's your audience, how much is really being spent. You can use SEM, Rush, and tools like that to understand that. And how much do I need to spend to be competitive? Because sometimes it's better to choose the free choice and grow organically than it is to try to fight with the big dogs. And sometimes it's going to be super cheap because no one's searching. Like nobody's looking for it online and you have a clear cut, or excuse me, everyone's looking for it online and no one's spending against it. And you have a clear cut chance to do it for cheap. So in layman terms though, $500 to $1,000 would be my sweet spot.
Well, Ron, again, thank you for being with us. It's a pleasure having you on. I hope that you would go ahead and enjoy the rest of the expo yourself. Remember, to all our participants out there, we do have our booths open that you can go and visit our businesses out there. They're waiting for you to come in, network with them. That's another way to market, by networking with other businesses as well. All right. So Ron, again, thank you for being here. Definitely have to have you on our podcast. We do have one here for the city that promote business as well. So we'd love to invite you on our podcast. Okay. It's a bi-weekly pre-recorded podcast and I'll be sending you an invitation.
That's excellent. I would love it, Johnny. And thank you so much for being such an excellent host. Again, thank you to Jonathan and the tech team. Thank you, Maya, for helping put this together. And I really appreciate you guys having me on the show. Good luck with the rest of the evening, everybody.
Thank you. Well, welcome back. Well, we've heard from Ms. Isaac. We've heard from Ms. Donna Young, Mr. John Zingale. We've heard from Victor Biggs. We've heard from Professor Kent, and we've heard from Ron Krudo. And now we have our next guest speaker who will talk to us about building relationships virtually. His name is Khaazra Maaranu. Khaazra Maaranu is a co-owner of Electronics Consumer, a full-service payment provider located in California. The payment processing company processes everything from brick and mortar to online businesses of every kind. He started his company many years ago with his business partner, built from the ground zero with no loans, no venture capitals, and no gurus to help them through the financial jungle. Well, the best thing of all about Mr. Maaranu is he's a family man, a good friend, loves to learn, and enjoys creating unforgettable memories. I present to you all right now, Mr. Khaazra Maaranu.
Okay, hello there, everyone. My name is Khaazra Maaranu, and I'm going to do something a little bit different here. I'm going to, because I can't see who's here, and so that kind of, it doesn't drastically change how I communicate with you, but it alters it a little bit. So I'm going to ask a couple questions that I'll probably see in the chat. That'll help me relate to you and maybe kind of tailor what I'm going to say, or some of what I'm going to say, rather. So first of all, we're talking about building relationships virtually, right? And then I'm going to talk a little bit about me, and then I want to find out a little bit about you before I go, right? We could do that with the easy poll. And so I'm born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. I now live in the beautiful Orlando, Florida. I'll tell you a little bit about the company that we started. It's called Electronic Commerce. It's a payment processing company. We've been around for maybe 14, 15 years, literally built the business from the ground up. Well, first of all, payment processing, people have heard of Stripe, they've heard of PayPal. You can go to your bank and get payment processing or credit card processing, or some people call it merchant processing. There's many different areas you can go, but there's not many FSPs, which is what we're considered. We're considered a full service provider. And just to give you just a quick snippet of what that means, most people are familiar with Stripe or PayPal. They are considered high risk payment aggregators, right? High risk payment aggregators. That means that they'll pretty much take on anybody initially, but it doesn't mean that they can accept your business. The beauty of a high risk payment aggregator is for people who may not have, they may not really have a business per se, right? They're just starting, right? They just need to get a website up really, really, really quick. So they go to PayPal, they go to Stripe, they get approved in a matter of minutes, but it doesn't mean that the business is set up properly. It's just an auto approval kind of system. Well, we're a little bit different, right? So we can do what they do, but we prefer to keep you in business for the long haul. So we handle the risk, we handle the underwriting, the tech support, everything. We also make sure that your site is compliant before we approve you, because it makes no sense to approve you and then have to shut you down a few days later. So we built the business from the ground up, no loans. Wish we had some coaches to help us out. And we built the business up to the point of doing over $1 billion in sale every single year, right? Well over $1 billion, billions and billions and billions of dollars since we've been in business, but well over $1 billion every single year. And that required a lot of freaking work, right? So I can kind of give you some of the things that we've done to help build relationships, because here's the thing, right? We started out door to door, right? We started the business out door to door. And the interesting thing is that, you can do door to door, right? Door to door or face to face is still absolutely important to build relationships. But when right before the pandemic hit, and I'm so thankful that we did this before the pandemic hit, the whole online world just like, boom, went from 0 to 100 really quick, like steroids, right? And so, it's a little bit different when it comes to building relationships virtually versus building relationships in person. So I can share some of the things that we've done to build relationships. If you still, like, maybe you have a restaurant, maybe you have a coffee shop, maybe you have a bookstore, or maybe you have an online business. So I'm going to share with you some of the things that has worked for us. But the beauty of what we do as a payment processor is that we also allowed to view and work with every kind of business known to man. You could be a church, you could be a grocery store, you could be a restaurant, you could be an adult entertainment store, right? I just saw the scripture come up, I didn't want to say that, but you could pretty much be anything and we'll work with you. So we get to see what works and what doesn't work. I also want to tell you what we've done wrong as a company, right? That cost us millions of dollars. I mean, literally millions of dollars. So I want to share that with you as well, because it makes no sense to just paint this beautiful picture without being 100% authentic with you at the same time. So I come from the School of Hard Knocks, right? Being born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, I wasn't the most educated young man, but I finally figured it out. Went to high school for 5 years, if you know what I mean. And then I finally went to college. It took me 7 years to graduate from college, like 7 to 8 years, because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And then finally finished that, and started working in the corporate world. I did some stuff for Goldman Sachs. I did some stuff for the Federal Reserve Bank, and so I kind of moved around a little bit, made some decent money. And right before 911 hit is when I moved, like literally a few months before 911 hit. And it's crazy because I would have been in the subway at the same exact time because I worked on Wall Street. That's what Goldman Sachs is, it's on Wall Street. And so I moved to Florida, right? And I could not find a freaking job. Even though I had a finance degree, I had an electrical engineering degree, I could not find a job, right? So I started volunteering for elementary school. And I started to I started to volunteer first, and then they brought me on as an employee of the company. And I think after about 3 or 4 years, and that was the hardest job I've ever had in my life, ever, right? I worked so damn hard in the school. I was doing everything. I was watching children. I was doing lunchroom duty, right? I was fixing computers, installing software, shooting videos, building websites. They had me doing everything I didn't even know how to do. So I was like this super duper flexible guy. Plus, like I said, I was watching children doing lunch. I was hoping the dean would discipline. I was doing crossing guard duty. I mean, this principal had me doing everything. And I got to a point like, now mind you, I come from Wall Street making close to 6 figures, and I go to Florida making zilch. And then I finally come on board, and I think after 3 or 4 years, I get to a point where I make maybe at the most $32,000 or $36,000, right? At the most, $32,000 or $36,000. And I'm like, I get the same 2-week vacation, that whole job thing. And I didn't really want more money. I just wanted more time. And so, I was always good with people, right? I knew everyone at the school. I could communicate well with vendors. I just liked people, right? Which I think is a great quality in building relationships. And I knew I wanted to do something that allowed my income to grow even when I wasn't working, right? I'm a hard worker, but I wanted to make money even when I wasn't working. And so I went online and found this article about payment processing. And I just jumped on it, to be honest with you. I just took risk. And I said, you know what? I flew out to California, and there's some details into that, and I won't lay that on you here, but I barely made it to California for this training. It's 100% commission opportunity. I went from $32,000 or $36,000 before taxes. I have a family of 4. I was the only one making money, and I had to leave that for something better. And so I flew out to California and got this 2-week training. I didn't understand anything that they were talking about. It was some kind of weird crypto math that they were teaching people there that only worked at their company. And I won't go into detail there. And then I came back to Orlando and I could not sell a thing. I literally thought that I was going to I thought we were going to be homeless. I was going to have my family move back in with, my children's mother, with her mom. I was almost at the point of I was going to, no exaggeration, report myself missing so that I would save myself the embarrassment of coming back home saying, we all have to be evicted, right? My son was in basketball, Little League basketball. My daughter was in dance, and that's pretty crushing, especially for children. So I couldn't, so I wasn't having any luck at this gig. And, I had the sales manual. I would walk into businesses, I had hair at the time, right? I had this big old overgrown suit on. And, I had a briefcase, and I would pull out my folder, my binder, and I would start to present, give a presentation, right? And I probably sound like a robot at the time. And so it wasn't working. And then, I heard, it's always good to continually invest in your personal development. I cannot say that enough. And I remember one guy saying, who was successful at sales, he says, whatever you do, don't quit. He says, whatever you do, do not quit. And then I remember another guy listening to a guy named Jim Rohn, right? Jim Rohn is passed on now, but this man has just given us so many jewels and gems. And some of the things he said were just I would hear it and play it again and again and again. It started to have an effect on me. And then I also thought about my upbringing in Detroit. Detroit is a pretty rough place, right? And I remember not being the most popular guy, but I was always a guy who was very observant. And I understood people, right? I really understood people. And so I finally just dropped the manual, dropped the corporate pitch. And instead of being this salesperson, I just became myself. And I started to connect with people. Literally, I started to connect with people, right? And then so I'm just gonna fast forward. I think I had the most sales that year without any previous sales experience. I had the most sales of anybody in the company. Then the next year, I quadrupled what I was making, right? I was the top salesperson then. And then I had to leave that entity, right? It was 100% commission, but by that time I had more confidence. I'm I already tripled my income within 8 months what I was making at the school. Then the next year I quadrupled it. I was more in control of my time. I could see my family when I wanted to see them. I could go play basketball. I could do what I wanted to do. Of course, providing that I got the work done. Because when you become an entrepreneur, business owner, you definitely don't do it to chill, right? You have more responsibilities. but they had the back office. So all I had to do was focus on sales. And so I did that, and I went to another company because I didn't like the ethics of the first company. And in the second company, I built it up. Some of those same relationships, right, that I had, now they followed me because I had a relationship. And I'll tell you how I kept those relationships, right? But I had one, right? And just like any relationship, right? It's not any different in business. You got to communicate with people and stay in touch and things like that. Be accessible. When there's an issue, try to fix it. If you can't, find someone who can. And so this other company, within 6 months, I surpassed the income I was making prior to that. And then I had some issues with their ethics as well. So I stopped doing that, started to do my own thing with the business partner of mine. We got this thing started called electronic commerce, and boom, just door to door again. Massive, massive sales, and then bringing on other sales reps, training them how to go out and generate business. And so I did that, and we got to the point maybe 3 or 4 years ago where we just started to really focus on online business. And so it's different in building a relationship in person, face to face, versus online. Totally different scenario. But the beauty of it, the online or the virtual way, is that instead of one-to-one when I'm going door to door, now it's one to many when you're online. Like right now, I'm talking to maybe 2, 3, 4, 500 people, right? There's no way I could do that individually. It'd take me, if I talk to one person a day, it'll still be a year and a half or so, right? And providing everybody is waiting for me to come and visit them. And then I don't know, who knows how much that will cost. And then I have a life, right? I can only have so much time, and you are the same way. So the online world is where it is at. Even if you have a brick and mortar business, you must have an online presence. And so, again, I'm going to tell you what we did that didn't work, right? And we're going to say what's working and what's not working. And so the sales scripts, that dry, memorized, kind of rote approach to business and to gaining clients and to building relationships, I would just dead that, right? But what does work is connecting, right? Connecting actually works. Now, some people are genuine with their connections and some people are not. You have to use better judgment, but since you are the one that's going to be initiating the connections, then it's going to be easy for you to do because you are in control of how the relationship pans out. So I want to make sure that I'm talking to everyone here instead of talking or communicating with everyone here instead of talking at them. If we can, somebody says, what are some good tools to build virtual relationships? We're going to talk about that. If we can, first of all, if we can in the chat, tell me, why do you think relationships are important? Why do you think relationships are important in the first place? And I want to see the answers because it's super important to even have an understanding of why it's important, because this is going to dictate how you develop relationships. Why are relationships important? Some people think relationships are important because they see them as a means to their end, meaning they look at relationships like tools. You go to conferences in person and you're passing out cards and you're getting cards because you're hoping someone does business with you. So Jay Douglas says relationships are long lasting. They are. So that's why they're important to you. Okay. And so in your mind, if you think that Jay says relationships are long lasting. So his intent on creating relationship is going to come through in his communication, whether it be an ad, whether it be in person, whether it be just through an organic post on social media. But some people may say, relationships are, I need to make money off of you, right? It's like, what can you do for me? And that is also going to come off in your communication with your clients. I promise you, it will come off in your communication. People could feel it, right? It'll feel kind of sleazy, it'll feel kind of salesy, and you will eventually probably ward off more people than you attract to you, right? So it's super important to understand why relationships are important. I'm not saying that your answer is wrong. I just drink some water here. haven't been sleeping much, right? Starting to catch up to me. And so your answer is your answer, but you need to understand that in the beginning, that when you're authentic and when you think about the infinite game and the long-term game instead of the short term, and what I mean by that is a lot of people think in business that they have to win. And that's a very short-term way of thinking. And so that's how they approach the relationships, when you should be thinking about the infinite game, right? A guy named Simon Sinek wrote a book called The Infinite Game. Excellent book, right? How do I formulate a positive ad? Okay, we're gonna talk about some of that too. We're gonna have like a little question and answer period here as well. So make sure you know what your intent is on building relationships. The next thing I want to talk about is authenticity, right? So how do you connect with people, right? How do you connect with people? What I mean by that is, let's say it's an entertainer or something like that, right? Or just people, your friends. How did you connect with them, right? That's super important to think about. How did you connect with them? Because how you connected with them is how you should connect with other people. Think about it, right? You know, name somebody who you like in entertainment, or maybe not entertainment, in your neighborhood, at your store, at your job, right? How do you connect? What is it that they did that allowed you to connect with them? Did they just come up to you and say, hey, listen, I'm glad you work here today. You know, here's what you need to do, get it done. I see you when it's done, right? Or did they come up to you and say, hey, maybe, my name is John or Joe, whatever, right? Kanisha, this is what I do. And, you want to go to lunch today, right? They kind of got to know you first, right? They didn't just come, boom, right at you, right at the door. It's almost like when you go to, when you're out and about and, you see a female or a man that you like, right? You don't just, no man hopefully walks up to a woman and says, hey, listen, can we go out tonight? And by the way, would you like to come back to my house, right? Like, that's just going to kill the deal. So you want to connect and some people are just straight out like that, right? It just depends on who you're dealing with. And if that's how you sell, that's how you sell. If that's how you connect, that's how you connect. But you want to be able to deal with people how you would want to be dealt with, right? So think about that when you're building it, because this is going to come out in your ads that are paid and in your organic traffic as well. So you also, what I see some people think that they have to connect or build relationships through advertising, promoting material things, right? You see a lot of videos and pictures today with all kind of cars behind them and houses and all kinds of things like that. And, people are draped in all kinds of expensive jewelry. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because unfortunately, especially if you're targeting a certain market, a certain demographic, that's what they connect with. That's what they love, right? But that doesn't mean that's the best audience to connect with, right? That audience comes with a lot of because with a lot of issues, right? There's some, there's issues with every audience you connect with, but you need to be mindful of how you are attracting people, right? It's extremely important to think about that, because if you connect with someone based off of something material or some, quote unquote, almost subliminal promise that you make them, and if they don't get that immediate fix, right, that can turn out to be a very bad relationship almost. And I like to use real life examples where a guy has this super duper exotic car that he's driving, right? But it's a lease, right? Or it's a rental. And he meets a woman based upon that. So naturally she's attracted to probably that. Once she finds out that it's not really his, then, how do you think the relationship turns out, right? And this is how a lot of people are marketing today. So just keep that in mind in your methods of building relationships. Now, here's the other thing. Another way to build your relationships is to think about it like this. You are the brand. Like, literally, you have to see yourself as a brand, because you can't talk to everyone individually. So it's one to many. And your brand is going to be what you do. I'm not saying that you don't need to have colors and things that people recognize, but is that really important? Like, are you really going to connect with somebody based upon them having pretty colors or certain colors? Or are you going to connect with them based upon what they actually do, more than likely you're going to connect with them based upon what they actually do. And I'm not talking about a short period of time. Remember that concept, the infinite game versus the long-term game. People think that they have to win when, are you really winning, right? If you take advantage of somebody, or if you get over somebody, or if you're able to make a lot of sales and not give an actual quality product, right? Think about the long term, because clients can buy once, twice, 3 times. You think about the lifetime value of some of your clients, they could be with you for 3, 4, 5 years. We've made millions with one client. We've made hundreds of thousands with one client, right? So you have to think about that, right? And maybe you have a small product and maybe it's only, $25, $30 or so. But what if they buy that product again, 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 and again, and again, right? So remember that your brand is what you do. And also, this is a relationship that people will have with you. Because remember, we're going one to many, hopefully, or even if you have a brick and mortar store, you still want to build relationships, right, with people. But your brand is what you do. And your brand is also the relationship people will have. Maybe if you have a cleaners, and if you do quality services, people will remember you by that. They're not going to only remember you because your sign was yellow or your sign was blue, or if you're a barbershop, because you have a little barbershop image, I forget what that is, red, white, and blue. Like, this barber knows how to cut hair, right? This salon, she does good work, or he does good work, or this doctor does this, or this dentist does that, or this grocery store has the best quality products and foods or whatever, or the cultural foods that benefit me. So think about that. And also, you want to make sure that you provide the highest quality products and services that you can. I don't care if you're writing a book, anything that you sell, that you exchange currency for, make sure it's high quality, right? Don't be scared to go ahead and put something out, but always be mindful of continually improving that, because that is your relationship. Remember, they get your service and product is an extension of you. So that's a part of their relationship. Let me make sure nobody's asking questions here. Are there any online tools that can help us build virtual audience? Well, this one is one right here. Just Zoom. I mean, you can literally just hop on a Zoom. But there's a ton of software programs like Zoom that you can use, right? Tons of them. And so the other thing I want to talk about is this. Here are some of the tools that we can use. And that is, how do you want to connect with people online? How do you want to build your virtual relationships online, right? And also, we're going to start off with, what is your online image? So, do you have a presence on Instagram? Do you have a presence on Facebook? Do you have a presence on YouTube? Do you have one on LinkedIn? Do you have one on TikTok? Like, where are you? Where's your target audience? Do you have to be on all of them at the same time? Right? So you want to think about that, right? What do you have? And let me see here who has an online presence, right? Who here has an Instagram account, right? That's like one of the more popular ones. Instagram, does anyone have Facebook? Does anyone have YouTube? It would be nice to know who I'm talking to and who has what, right? This is a quiet audience, right? Yeah, who has a social media account, basically? Who here has a social media account? I need to know that. Remember, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, you can reach millions of people with some of these software tools. Someone asked me, what was the question that I think Jay asked me? He says, are there any online tools? These are the tools right here. Now, you don't have to be on all of them at the same exact time, but you can, I don't want to go too far because I'm not, based upon the feedback, I don't know if many of us are online. So I don't want to go too far in the rabbit hole, right? But those are some of the tools that you use. I'll just give you a little bit of information about each one. So Instagram is more of like a younger crowd, for sure. It's really picture oriented. It's, a lot of videos, stories on Instagram. Stories are like the soap operas you see, right? So to speak. Yeah, kind of like that, right? It's almost like, like when you see like the news and they have these different things that are happening throughout the day, your stories are about what happens throughout your day. They only last 15 seconds long on each one, right? Well, each clip, rather, is 15 seconds. and the story lasts for 24 hours. So that means once, let's say you post 3 stories, that's 15, 30, 45 second stories. That's 45 seconds, right? You can post that and then go do whatever you have to do, and people will see that all day long for the next 24 hours, right? Now you can set up and then the feed or the wall, which is like your store, when people are walking by your store, they see your store, your presentation. That's what your wall looks like on Instagram. And so when people come to your page, they can see your wall. Maybe you have a picture of whatever it is that you do one day, a picture of your family the next day, just different things. And you can also put comments on each, right? There's all kinds of other things you could do with Instagram, but again, I don't know who I'm talking to, so I don't want to go too deep. Oh, okay. Okay, no problem. Okay, got it. So that's Instagram, and you can do a lot. Instagram has, on the IG feed, you can post something up to 60 seconds. Remember, like I said, the stories, each clip is 15, but then they have IG TV. Like, no one watches TV anymore, like, period. Everything is online, at least for me. And I'm not in my 20s, I'm not in my 30s, I'm past that, right? So everything I do is online. I'm on my phone, right? Consistently. There's something going on online right now. As soon as I get off this, I'm going to jump on it because it's an actual live presentation that's on Instagram. And it's like a live, 2 guys who are discussing some issues, and I want to see it. And there'll be thousands and thousands and thousands of people there watching as well. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is you can go to Facebook, where a lot of people run ads. You can run ads on Instagram natively, but you can also run ads on Facebook. So Facebook is a little bit more mature crowd, but it is one of the best platforms for running ads. You can post quotes on Facebook. You can post them on Instagram as well. And with Facebook, you have a business account, which allows you to run ads. And then you can also have a personal account where you can't run ads on that. You can do stories too, but they're not as popular. They don't work as well. And they don't have as many features. And you can post long stories on Facebook as well. So, and then also you have Facebook groups where you can build your community. This is another really, really great tool in building your community, is by having Facebook groups. Okay, so right now, let me speed it up here, right? But here's the thing. You don't want to be on social media all day. There's definitely ways around that. And just really quick, there's some touch points, right? In building relationships. You want to make sure that you're on point before, during, and after the sale. Before, during, and after the sale. If you want to keep and maintain a relationship, whether it be in person or online, you want to follow up and be there definitely after the sale, because you want your clients to have an awesome, awesome experience. So here's what not to do really quick. What not to do is don't go into your relationships just to make a quick buck. Don't chase the money, right? Chase the experience. Give your client the best experience, right? You don't want to have little to no customer service. You do not want to do that. You don't want to ignore your clients. You don't want to ignore their complaints or their praises, right? And I could go into detail, but we don't have time here, of some of the salespeople that I work with online and offline. The ones who are only about about getting the buck, they always lose clients. But the ones who nurture them, they always keep them, right? So you don't want to treat, and this is one thing that our company started to do, our back office people, they started to treat clients like a number, and that's when you have the problem, is when they treat clients like a number. So I'm going to give you a site. I don't know if I can do that or not, and this is nothing to sell you whatsoever. Can I do that and give them a site, right? You can go, and this is just free. It's basically a weekly video series where it's called buildgrowandscale.com. Buildgrowandscale.com. You can go there. You can sign up for free weekly videos, or you can go to Instagram and catch me there. I got a long name, but you see it here, Khaazra Maaranu. And type the word. If you go to my Instagram, in the messages, and this is another way to build relationships virtually, an excellent way to build relationships. Go to my DMs and type the word confidence, and you will see how relationships are built without me even being there. So thank you for having me here.
Sir, thank you so much for being a part of our program today. We thank you, and we appreciate your information that you've given to us. It's a lot to take in. Thank you so much for being here. Well, we're back. Thank you for hanging out with us the whole day at our Bizfit COVID-19 virtual expo. We're so glad that you stuck with us this long, but you will not be disappointed. We have our next guest speaker. Her name is Kimberly Gray Roberts. Kimberly Gray Roberts, prior to becoming the founder of Lead Strategist of Absolute Value Marketing, Kim Gray Roberts worked the last 2 decades in the advertising industry with the most respected corporations and advertising agencies in the US, developing strategic marketing plans for some of the country's best beloved brands. Ms. Roberts is a proven marketing professional, specializing in developing impactful strategies that build brand identity and strategic go-to-market media plans that drive revenue. A self-described media junkie, closely following everything from pop culture to politics, Kimberly is also a vivid reader, a Royal Marvel fan, a classic movie and TV buff, an enthusiastic traveler and adventure seeker who is equally happy to spend time at home with family and friends. Kimberly is married and resides in Broward County. It is my pleasure to present to you our speaker this evening, Ms. Kimberly Gray Roberts.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here this evening, and thank you for saving the best for last. I appreciate that. I'd really like to also thank the City of Miramar, the Miramar and Pembroke Pines Chambers of Commerce, Mayor Messam, Vice Mayor Coburn, and the Commissioners Barnes, Chambers, and Davis for putting this together. This, your leadership is unparalleled, and this is most definitely providing a needed service for the community. And with that, I am so excited to be presenting 10 steps to creating a killer marketing strategy. Now, one of the things that I want to start out saying before I even dive into the presentation itself is marketing strategy is one of those things that's sort of embedded in a business plan, or it's a one-off thing that you realize that you do, and maybe putting together some flyers or maybe doing something on your social media when you have a sale or there's something that you want people to come and get. But your marketing strategy is really the lifeblood of your business, and it is something that consistently changes, much like we do. Our tastes change, and we all know that this last year has really shown that things are different. Business is done in a very different way, and these are the lessons that I've been teaching my clients for the last 20 years is your marketing strategy is not a static thing. It is as dynamic as you are. So with that, we're going to look at what we offer as an agency. And we offer every single service that your business could potentially need in order to put together a marketing strategy and execute a marketing strategy to help you get results. So everything from content marketing to social media, to media planning and buying, all of that is here for you that we're able to offer. So one of the things that, hold on one second, I just lost my sheet. There we are. So one of the things that we want to remind you guys is we have here a dynamic, again, it's dynamic conversation between you and your ideal customer. It's not a one-way street anymore where you just put out what you want people to come get and they show up on your doorstep. You have to engage them. And when you engage them, they then build trust with you and become your advocate. Mm-hmm. So how do you as a business cut through all of that clutter in order to get your client's attention? Well, first, you define your brand and you develop a plan. And how do you define your brand? You understand what's unique or convenient about the service or product that you provide, where you fit in the marketplace and how your consumers, how your customers view you and want to come to you over going somewhere else. The next thing you're going to do is develop your plan. And that plan must be strategic in order to reach those audiences that are qualified. This is not just what we like to call a pay and spray, where you're spending money and hoping someone comes in the door. You're actually picking out specific targets to reach them where they are and at the time that they're ready to buy. And how do we do that? We do that in phases. And again, these things are continual. But the first phase we're in is the understanding phase. And that's where you get to know and understand your customer, your best customer. Who is that person that's consistently coming in the door and they're always buying from you? And they're not just keeping it to themselves, but they're sharing your store, your information with other people. That's your ideal customer. And how do you get more of them? Where are they? What media do they watch? Are they media junkies like me? Are they watching the same things that you watch? Are they listening to the same podcast? Are they listening to the same radio station? You want to know as much as you possibly can about these individuals so that you can go into the next phase of your plan. And that is developing those strategies and tactics and identifying your KPIs. Like, Once you figure out what those strategies and tactics are, your KPIs are your key performance indicators. And those are those measurements, those metrics that are going to tell you that you're going to define what is going to mean success. What's success going to mean in this particular with this particular tactic? And of course, all of this is being optimized as you go. The next phase is your build phase. And in that build phase, you want to look at your owned, your earned, and your paid media. So we'll talk a little about earned, owned, and paid. Earned is that media that you get just by being you. These are people who advocate for you. These are stories when people come and say, I want to talk about you on my channel. I want to wear your garments. I want to wear your products. This is earned media. This is media that you get for free just by being your perfect, wonderful self. Your own channels is the media that you develop yourself. This is your social media posts. They can be your photos. It could be your blog post. It could be your FAQ, your knowledge base. This is what you create. This is your owned media. It doesn't belong to anyone else. Then your paid media channels are those channels that literally you pay for. So this could be your magazine articles, your flyers, your out-of-home billboards. It could be your car wraps. It could be anything that you actually pay in another entity, a third party, to distribute on your behalf. That next piece, after you're in that building phase of making sure that your message is everywhere, your next phase is your test phase, because you're not just going to have one message. Keep in mind, you're looking for that ideal audience, and though that might be more than one person. So you want to test. Do your customers prefer red or white, green or blue? You want to test colors. You want to test different phases. Do they react more when they have an actual salesperson come see them, or do they react better when you just send them an email and tell them to come in? The next piece of that is the refinement phase. Once you get your data from your test phase, you're going to take that information and refine it, which means cutting out those pieces that don't perform as well. And you want to narrow it down and spend dollars only in those channels that are performing better for you. So now that we know what the phases are, we're going to get into how those phases are broken down. Because in that understand phase, there are 3 steps, and this is where your 10 killer steps come from. So in that first phase, your understand phase, you're going to develop your audience persona. You're going to develop a SWOT analysis. That's your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You're going to analyze that. And then you're also going to look at your competitive set and do a competitive analysis. Who are your competitors? Who's in the market? Who's doing the same thing or similar, or is trying to be like you? You want to know who those people are. Who are the players? Phase 2 is your planning phase. And this is where all of your number crunching comes in. You're looking at your budget. You're looking at your brand voice and your tone, your marketing funnel and your messaging. You're looking at your marketing plus your business goals. You're going to align those 2 things. Next is your build phase, where you're going to look at your marketing channels. Then in phase 4, your test phase, you're going to look at your tactics. And again, getting those tactics aligned to what's working better, what's being more efficient. And then finally in phase 5, you're going to your refinement stage. And that's where you're looking at your metrics and your KPIs. In your metrics and KPIs, you may use Google Analytics. You may use HubSpot. There are thousands, literally thousands of analytics tools that are available to you to be able to use and compile all of your information in one space. Now, here are those 10 steps broken out into the pathway. And we're going to break down each one, starting with audience persona. And I mentioned a little bit of this before, but you're going to start, and this is your template. So you can write these notes down. You're going to start with writing out your target audience statement. Now, for example, mine is Absolute value marketing creates actionable strategic marketing and advertising plans for businesses that build brand awareness and increases revenues. That's my target audience statement. And I have that one as being relatively broad, but then I have more narrow statements based on specific types of clients that I want to go after. So if I'm going after someone in the fashion industry, then I'll take my target statement and refine that to someone in fashion industry. The next thing you want to do is visualize that ideal customer, just like I said before. If that customer is your, say, your best customer that you have, or perhaps it is how you envision a perfect customer acting for you. You want to know their age, their education, household income, location, profession. What media channels are they using when they're looking for a product or service? Are they on social media at all? Are they only on traditional media? Are they reading the newspaper? You need to know this about your ideal customer. Why did they choose you over the competition? What is your competitive edge that you have? And you'll be able to see this even more clearly once you pull out that competitive set. And we'll get to that very shortly. And then finally, what other competitors did they consider? So again, going back to your competitive set, or better yet, talking to your customers and finding out from them if they've been somewhere else, how did they make their way to you, and why did they choose you? So being, again, engaging with your customer and finding out what it is that they like about you, what brings them to you, and that helps you determine how best to spend your marketing dollars. Next piece is our SWOT analysis. And this is one of the things that is very important to be able to do. It's part of your business plan. And you're going to determine your strengths and weaknesses. And those are internal factors. So that is what you do well inside your business, your strengths and your weaknesses. What can you fix in your businesses? Where do you need to grow? Your opportunities and threats come from external factors. So that's where you're looking at your competitive set. What opportunities are available in the marketplace that you could potentially fill with your product or service? And threats. What products or services are out there that pose a threat to your business? Again, external factors versus internal factors make up your SWOT analysis. Very important to have this filled out because it is a key component of your business plan, but also of your marketing plan. And here's the competitive analysis. You want to start with your top 5 competitors. And this is your third step. So we're going to run through the rest of these pretty quickly. But you want to identify those top 5 competitors, find out what their pricing is. What's their key advantage in the marketplace? Where are they advertising? What are they doing? And kind of make a guess as to how much they may be spending in their advertising as well. So that gives you some clues as to how to set your own budget so that you can compete on their level. The next thing you want to do is look at their channels. Look at their social media. Do they have social media channels? How many followers do they have? How are they engaging with their followers? Those are the things, again, this is that intel that you need to be able to get a better edge against the competition. Next is our budget. And budget, you can set your budget a couple different ways. I do like to look and see what my competition is doing in order to get an idea of a ballpark figure of where I want to be on budget. You can also base it on percentage of sales, or if you have a marketing team or you have specific marketing objectives that you are trying to achieve, you can use the objectives and task method. And that's defining those specific tasks within the marketing plan, and then figuring out how much that costs in man hours, in information, in tools, and then once you look at that overall price tag, that tells you about how much you should also be spending for marketing in general. Once you find out what those hard costs are for you in order to market. This is what a sample budget could potentially look like. I broke this down into various channels. So once you've had a chance to get your budget laid out, so that you can see what the numbers look like. You want to then move into step 5 and look at what's your brand voice and tone. And this is one of my favorite things to look at because I think there are some brands that do so well. Now, one of my favorites to look at is Wendy's and their Twitter account, which is, and I've labeled it here, Savage. Now, if you look at a Wendy's commercial on TV and they're showing burgers, not a big deal. But when you go to that Twitter account, it has such a cutting sense of humor, and they are very sarcastic without being offensive. And they have so many Twitter followers that what they have done is essentially now gotten their followers to on purpose engage with them so that they can have that conversation with Wendy. And that's something that all brands want, is their followers to actively seek to engage with them. Another is, I believe, the Motor, who sells insurance, and he always has something fabulously funny to say. But this way that this insurance company has gone about selling insurance and making insurance fun has really resonated. And he's become quite famous because he's half man and half motorcycle. It doesn't make any sense, but it's funny. The next thing that a brand can go for is strict emotion. When Dove, for example, does the ageless beauty, and beauty comes in all shapes and sizes, and that strikes at our emotions, versus, say, a Baptist Health that is strictly business. They give you the facts. They want you to understand what they do and what they stand for, and there's no frills. So determining what your brand of tone and voice is very important, because it's going to help you develop your messaging. And when you're deciding what your messaging should be, you want to think about your brand. Think about what problem are you solving? What solution are you providing? What keywords best describe you? What tone do you want to use? Because once you hit on all those things and you do a good job of it, your customers are going to always want to engage with you, and they're going to recommend you to others. The next thing in that, and probably the most important thing, and my best advice, is when you are developing your message, there's nothing more important right now than making sure that you are especially mindful of the social, cultural, and linguistic sensitivities when you're launching and maintaining a marketing plan, because it can go horribly wrong, and apologies are sometimes too late, especially in 24/7 media, and in the case of social media, it's literally second by second, and you may not be able to keep up with it. So if you are using a message that's meant to target a specific audience, if it's an ethnic audience or any audience right now, because everyone is very sensitive and sensitivities are very heightened, you want to make sure that you test this out with members of that specific group prior to actually having it go live. So always have, if you are reaching out to women, make sure that you run it by a woman before you make it go live, to make sure that you're hitting the right tone. Tone is extremely important. The next step is aligning your marketing and your business goals. So if you know that you have set a goal of increasing your sales by 5% every month, then you also need to align your marketing activities to go with that. So you want to have an increase in sales and combined with online and brick and mortar sales. Well, how do you go about doing that? Well, that's part of your tactics. And we've talked about a little bit about tactics. If you want to increase your web traffic, you know that it needs to probably come from your digital marketing channels. You may also use your sales team for that. But then you want to think about your tactics. And so the next thing that we get is choosing those channels that are going to best implement those specific tactics. So if you're looking at content marketing, if you've decided that the best way for me to reach my customer is to show them what we do, perhaps you need to do a blog. You need to publish photos. You need to have an Instagram account. You need to have a Twitter account. You need to have a Tumblr account that shows your photos, or even a YouTube channel that shows you demonstrating your products. For digital media, you need search and display, or maybe you just want to focus on search. If you have public relations, are you going to take your budget and use it for events or press releases? These are all tactics that you may use in order to, again, expand your brand. So when we're looking at these channels, as I said, when we're looking at public relations, we know that that is going to achieve awareness and engagement. So on this particular template, and I recommend that, again, your marketing plan, you want to write all this down. You want to have it in writing so that you can always go back and refer to it. So you're going to achieve awareness and engagement with your public relations. You're also going to achieve that with your digital marketing. But digital marketing is also going to bring you closer to purchase intent. So you're looking at search, display, your SEO, your search engine management, your keywords. Those are things that you want to have in mind while you're putting together this plan, or the tactics that you plan on using. So what tactics? Like I said, for public relations, you might want to have an event. It might be a happy hour. You might want to do a car wrap. That's considered out of home. Emails or newsletters, that's email marketing. You can also even look at webinars for your sales team. Education is amazing. That's what we're doing right here. This is an amazing marketing tool for Miramar and Pembroke Pines Chamber of Commerce. It could be display ads or even print ads. It's all up to you what tactics you use. But when you get to that final step is analyzing those results. And again, using a grid like this really helps you lay out what's important, what goals you set out, and how close you got to achieving those goals or exceeding those goals even. So here I show you, this is the stage in the customer journey. It's based on your sales funnel. These are the strategies that we put into place. These are the objectives that we wanted to set, or the audiences that we wanted to be able to meet. And our KPIs, our key performance indicators. How do we know how close we got to this being successful? And then you can even go farther with showing how many clicks you received on your website, how many visitors you received in your door. You also want to engage with your customers. Ask them, if you have a sales team, ask them, how did you find us? Having those quick conversations will help you get more information and make your marketing strategy even more effective. The next thing you do, repeat steps 1 through 10. This is cyclical. You continue to do it. It is dynamic, because here's the best part. As you get more customers, as your audience grows, your business grows, your marketing has to grow with them. So you're going to start again by looking at that audience persona and making tweaks. If something has changed, you need to change your marketing plan, your marketing strategy to adjust to the changes in your business. If there's a change in how consumers are reacting to your products, and it means you need to maybe bring on something new, this is where it's going to happen. So this is where we are. At the end of the day, we want to remember, content builds relationships. Relationships are built on trust, and trust drives revenue. I really appreciate your time, and I really want to take some questions from you. Do we have any questions?
Well, yes, we do. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Roberts, for the wonderful presentation. We do have questions for you.
Great.
First question I have is, for a startup business, what is the suggested pricing, and what do you recommend for startup businesses?
You said suggested pricing for a startup?
What do you recommend for startup businesses when it comes to marketing strategies, and how does that fit? How does that look in the scale of the scope of even budgets for a small startup business?
Right. If you don't have sales to project against, but if you're starting out and you're putting together your business plan, your marketing strategy is the basis, is part of your basic business plan. And in that business plan, you should have a P&L statement or projected sales. What I would say is get started with those strategies that won't cost out of pocket. So this is where you build up your owned media. Remember, I mentioned that earlier on. So your owned media could be a blog. It could be photos that you take. It could be videos that you do that are informational, that talk about your brand, what you do. And you can push those out without having to put any major dollars behind it. And I want to be very practical. When you're starting out, I know that budgets can be very tight if they exist at all. So focus on your owned media. But even if it's something that you're doing on your own and doing yourself, you still have to be consistent and be very strategic. So you still need to put a plan together, who you're going to reach, who you're going to target, because you don't want, again, because your own media takes up your time, and your time is money.
Absolutely. And thank you. And our next question is, should a person offer any incentives in the beginning of their marketing?
You know what? I'm very on the fence about incentives.
Okay.
I'm very on the fence, and it really depends on what the product or service is. For example, I do offer a free consultation. I'll do a free 30-minute consultation. It almost always inevitably is difficult to do, because especially if you love what you do, like I do, it's hard to bring it down into just 30 minutes. And you do want that person to come back and use what you have to offer. If you have a small product samples, things like that. If you make candles, make smaller candles that don't cost you a lot, to be able to get people interested in the product that you have. So find a way to, yes, I think you can incentivize, but be careful in how you do so, because you don't want to give away too much.
Okay. Wonderful. 2 more questions. When you go through these phases, what is the predicted timeline that it takes for you to go from the beginning of the phase to the end of the phase, getting your business off the ground and getting it rolling out there? What is the predicted time frame for that?
So that's what's interesting. I've been doing this for 20 plus years. And when I worked on major brands, when I worked on GlaxoSmithKline, the pharmaceutical brand, I would typically start planning in May in order to start advertising in September. Because you want to be able to give yourself enough time to understand what's going on in the market, what's available in the market. You have to do that competitive research. You don't want it to be rushed. Now, if you're starting now, and even developing your own content, so I'm going to take it back to your owned media and developing your content, you don't want it to be rushed. You want to take your time and make sure you're putting out quality, because customers are very savvy right now. We're customers. Think about how you like to have things presented to you. You definitely don't want to see something that's just thrown together. You're not going to give that person another thought. So remember that when you're putting together your plan, you want to be very methodical with it, and ask questions. That's what there are agencies all over. That's one of the things that I love to do. If you call me up and you want to have a 30-minute consult, we can go through those things and help you figure out like what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you.
Thank you again. And our last question for you. My business is going in a successful way. It's growing. when is a good time for me to look at my marketing strategies and refresh them?
Consistently. So I really like to do it at least once a quarter. And that is on the outside. If I've waited 6 months to look at my marketing strategy, I am almost always guaranteed to find a huge hole, a gap that I've missed, an opportunity that has passed me by. So really look at it at least once a quarter to just examine, and that's going back through those steps, check your phases, going through those steps, and then, you know, once a quarter, carving out that time. You can do it in about 2-3 weeks. Once you get your marketing strategy together, that next quarter, it'll take you about 2-3 weeks just to kind of go through everything and see if there's anything that's really changed, and you can make adjustments accordingly.
Well, Ms. Roberts, we want to thank you so much for spending time with us today, giving us invaluable information and resources. We will have this presentation available for our audience. That's okay with you?
Absolutely.
Great. Well, I'd like to thank our audience, and I'd like to thank our participants so much for engaging us today with our Bizfit COVID-19 edition virtual